We have our DJJ Secretary and Special Olympics Board Member, Florida, Dr. Eric Hall is with us. We have Representatives Trunow, Smith, and Hawkins from the Florida House of Representatives with us. And then we have Elaine Valley and her daughter and Special Olympics athlete, Isabella. And we also have Frank Veronica, another Special Olympics athlete with us here today. So the 2022 USA Games for Special Olympics International are scheduled to begin this weekend in Orlando. It's something that we've worked with Special Olympics Florida and my administration really over the last couple years, looking forward to what we hope would be a really good event. My wife Casey's been involved, and we really feel strongly that having opportunities for these Special Olympians is very important for our state, and we want all the We want everybody in the state to be able to have opportunities to make the most of their God-given abilities, and then to be able to compete in athletics. And obviously that takes a variety of different forms, but when you have folks that have disabilities, to give them an opportunity to compete is really meaningful. And I can tell you the heart and the determination you see from our Special Olympians is remarkable, and they're able to do things that, quite frankly, I don't think that I would be able to do under those circumstances. And so they really should be admired and commended. And so this is something that I think is really meaningful for people throughout the state of Florida. Now, we also, over the last couple of years as a state, have taken some very strong stands, namely with respect to some of these COVID policies. And our view has been that your rights or your freedoms should not be circumscribed by your decision to take or not take a COVID vaccine. And so that took really a couple different iterations in terms of actions that we took. I mean, one of the things we did very early on was ban vaccine passports in the state of Florida. And so you're able to participate in society without having this mandate imposed upon you. And that was not the norm in many places in this country, and it's still not the norm in other countries. I don't think you're even allowed to enter Canada unless you show proof of this mRNA vaccine. And so that was inappropriate because at the end of the day, our view was there needs to be choice in this regard. It's also just the case that scientifically many people by 2021 had already had COVID and recovered. And we believe in evidence-based analysis, and we believe that immunity through prior infection is real, just like it's been for every other respiratory virus. And now you finally, CDC will at least tacitly acknowledge that, but they were denying that for a long time. That was anti-scientific, and it really exploded any type of rationale to do really a remarkable infringement on people's freedom. So we were never supportive of doing that. You should be able to go to a movie theater. You should be able to go to a restaurant. You should be able to do what you want to do without having to produce medical papers, and certainly without being excluded from participating in society. And there were some that didn't want people who didn't bow down to this, the altar of these vaccines, that they didn't want them. They wanted them to be marginalized. They wanted them to have less rights. They wanted them to even potentially be denied education and opportunities. And that was never going to fly in the state of Florida. And so we're happy to have taken a very strong stand there. And, people said at the time, well, why can't a business force someone to do a vaccine or something, passport to go? And I said, you know what? First of all, I think I want people's freedoms to be respected to participate, which is more important to me than what some business does. But, you know, if one business did passports in Florida, people would say Florida had passports, and we would not have had record-breaking tourism in 2021. I can tell you that. So it's been the right thing to do. We also, when you had the prospect of both federal mandates as well as a lot of corporate mandates, including some major companies here in Central Florida, they were going to fire employees who did not get COVID vaccines. We even saw that in some of the municipalities, such as the fire department of Orange County. And so these were fights where the state of Florida was squarely on the side of the individuals and their right to work, regardless of the choice they made with the COVID vax. And so some of that was just done in accordance with what we did with the passports, but then we did come in a special session of the legislature just as people were right on the precipice of losing jobs, and we passed protections for every Floridian, not just against Biden's mandates, but even against corporate mandates. And so we were able to save thousands and thousands of jobs throughout the state of Florida by doing that. And it was, I think, really problematic, especially when you had a lot of the people who were kind of frontline folks, first responders, nurses, potentially getting fired after they were the ones doing all this hard work all the way through COVID. Now you're going to fire them because of this? Give me a break. And so we were right to do that, and that was the right decision. So fast forward to this summer with this June with the Special Olympics, and they imposed on the athletes a COVID vax mandate. And so if you were not allowed to, if you did not submit and you did not get the COVID vax, you would be denied the ability to compete in the Special Olympics. And what connection that has to competing, I don't understand. I mean, some of the stuff is, we've never seen something wielded like this vaccine to try to marginalize disfavored people, to try to deny people full freedom and full rights, and to go after Special Olympians who all they wanted to do is compete was not consistent with Florida law, and it's not the right thing to do. Let them compete. We want everybody to be able to compete. And so what has ended up happening is, you know, you've had some of these athletes from outside of Florida who have not wanted to do this and basically had assumed that they were not going to be able to participate. You had others who didn't want to do it but wanted to compete so badly that even against their judgment ended up doing the vaccine. So, for example, there was a family from Kansas. They went to 6 different doctors to plead for a medical exemption for their son that had Down syndrome. Wanted the exemption from the vax, wanted to be able to compete. They were told to just get the first dose, and if he experiences any side effects, then the medical exemption will then be offered. Well, the son with Down syndrome did do that under pressure, had a seizure, was rushed to the hospital after his first dose, and so then he was granted the exemption after having to go through that, which was so unnecessary, and it was just something that was totally ridiculous. And so you're seeing that over and over where these people are going to have to make these decisions, and it's not necessarily, some of it's just personal choice, which is fine by me, but some of it you actually have advised against doing this. And a lot of these Special Olympians have also had COVID by now, because, I mean, most people have had it by now. And so to impose that mandate now in June of 2022, you know, didn't make sense. Nevertheless, that was the posture we were in. I told Surgeon General Latipo, I said, look, you know, Florida law requires them to be able to compete. So work together with the Special Olympics International. Let's see. And look, the people here in Florida agreed. They wanted them to be able to compete. This is really something from outside our state with the mandate being imposed. And so finally, we can report that all the athletes will be allowed to compete regardless of the vaccine. And so this will be a relief to a lot of the athletes, although I think we do have to acknowledge, because it's coming so late, some athletes are not going to necessarily be able to make the arrangements to be able to come and participate. And so while there is not a mandate in place as of now, the fact of the matter is there may be some who logistically are not able to compete. Now, we hope that the Florida athletes are all, and there's a significant number of them who are in limbo up until this week, and it's our view that we're going to get almost all of them going to be able to do. I know they're working on accommodations to making sure everybody's okay, but this is a really significant event for these athletes, and in Florida, we want all of them to be able to compete. We do not think it's fair or just to be marginalizing some of these athletes based on a decision that has no bearing on their ability to compete with honor and integrity. And so this was important that we engaged in this. I wish it did not have to come to this. I wish this had been resolved earlier, but I do think that this is something that's very, very important. That, I mean, especially, like I said, we applied this society-wide in Florida. We don't think anybody should be targeted on this basis for sure. But to do it to these Special Olympians, to me, was just totally wrong. So we're going forward. We think it's going to be a fun event. We think that there's going to be a lot of great competition, and we're really excited that these athletes who were in limbo for many, many weeks and months, now have the peace of mind to know that they're going to be able to compete. And so we do believe that this is going to be really, really significant. So I'm going to let Joe Ladapo come up, talk a little bit about this issue, and then we're going to hear from some of our Special Olympians. Part of the reason we're here is because you have golf connection to practicing right here. And so these are good stories that I know a lot of people will really be interested in. Okay, the Surgeon General of Florida.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks. All right. Well, I really wish we didn't have to be here. I mean, one of the people in my department likes to say that this is I think she says this is the 6th inning of COVID. We shouldn't be having these conversations at this point from what we know about the pandemic. Scientifically, it makes 0 sense. How can you force people to take a vaccine in order to stop transmission when that vaccine is not effective at stopping transmission? You don't have to go to medical school to know that doesn't make sense, right? And that's what Special Olympics International was asking people to do. They weren't asking people even to have a booster or anything like that. And the scientific studies show that at this point, at this far out, there's basically 0 protection from infection from the vaccines. So scientifically, it doesn't make sense, and it didn't make sense. Ethically, it doesn't make sense. It's on the wrong side ethically. The governor's described some of those reasons. I'll add a little bit more to it. We don't like to talk, frankly, about safety because it's taboo. But safety is an honest conversation that needs to happen. Okay? Many people, I'm sure people in this room, know individuals who have experienced adverse effects after these vaccines, unlike any other vaccines, right? And some people will say, oh, you know, millions of people have taken these vaccines. They must be safe. Well, you can't know the answer to that when it is taboo to talk about having reactions after the vaccines. And there's another reason why we know that there almost certainly is something different happening after these vaccines. Because there's another vaccine that over 100 million Americans take every year, and it's the influenza vaccine. And the string of adverse events that I've heard from people all over this country after these vaccines is nothing like the years of my life when I've been in medicine and have been administering the influenza vaccines to people. There is a difference, and you can't say that millions of people getting it excuses you from that difference. Okay? And then, as the governor said, legally it doesn't make sense. Vaccine passports have been illegal, thanks to the governor's leadership, in this wonderful, great state for over a year. And our conversations with Special Olympics International, although they post on their website that we just made this announcement a few days ago, we started these conversations 6 months ago. We have been trying to avoid this very situation, and not for our sakes, but for their sakes, for the sake of these athletes. And not only our brave athletes here, but the brave athletes who received this demand from the Special Olympics International and felt coerced to make a decision that they didn't want to make. And for the athletes who felt that, you know what, I don't want to do this, and so I'm just not going to compete. And for all the people outside of Special Olympics who have been in the same situation, employees, students, everyone, professionals who have been in the same situation of facing a decision where there was coercion to undergo something that they didn't want to undergo. It is wrong. People have tried to convince Americans that it's the right thing. It is the wrong thing. There's no changing that. That is the truth. So, you know, I'm really glad. I hope that as many athletes as possible will now be able to participate now that they've changed the policy. I hope that they're going to really make some strong efforts to help people who are now scrambling to buy tickets and you know, obtain secure accommodations to be here and to compete. I truly hope that they do that. And the broader message that I want everyone to know, if it's not clear already, is that thanks to the governor, Florida is a state that will fight to protect your rights. The governor will fight to protect your rights. Many of our Florida lawmakers, fortunately, will fight to protect your rights, and I will also fight to protect your rights.
Well, thanks, Joe. Really appreciate that. And just, you know, it's good to know that we have a Surgeon General who actually believes in evidence-based medicine, not ideology. All right, Elaine and Isabella are here to share their story. It was
Well, I have to say that we just found out this morning that that she will be able to compete. We just want to thank the governor, DeSantis, and the governor's team. I've had a lot of conversations in the last couple of weeks, and also the Florida Department of Health for also speaking with us and just wanting to get more and more information. I'm going to keep this very short because we're just shocked and excited about the news.
So it was about what she competes in and everything. So
Isabella has, from the age of 7, she has competed and she's been in swimming, obviously golfing, She has been in basketball. And basketball. And what else? Basketball, swimming, golfing.
What's your favorite?
And cycling, yes. So she's been a part of Special Olympics Florida for these many years. That's right. And so it has been a roller coaster ride for sure. We began with the excitement of, where she's in, and then they tell us we've got to have these vaccine mandate, and so here we go down, and then we're told we get to go to training as a whole group, and we're up again. And then April 22nd, I won't forget that date, we're told you're not in, you're done. So I'm having to share this with my daughter on a, up and down. So, but again, thank God, God did not give me her without a voice. So I'm a voice, and I was hoping to be a voice for these athletes. It's all about the athletes. And so, I am happy to say that inside of, Special Olympics, I know Florida says inclusion. I'm just so thankful that we are especially here in Florida, our Special Olympics Florida. I'm glad that our team is back together.
Yeah.
So.
Good luck to you. All right, now we have another participant, golfer, Frank Veronica.
Good day, everybody. My name's Frank Vernoy. I'm from St. Lucie County, and I've been an athlete since 8.5. This was a big long-term goal for me, and being told that I was able to go in February and then come just a couple months ago and being told no, and being threatened with emails after email that I would have to prove vaccination to go. But unfortunately, it was a good thing. I worked with Elaine's mom, the governor's team, the Surgeon General, Florida Department of Health, and I want to thank all of them for fighting and standing up for us. And I can say no more. We got the best governor in the state.
And where is the golf competition going to take place at?
It's going to be Orange County National.
Orange County National. So you guys are going to get your money's worth there. So, all right. Last but not least, Dr. Eric Hall, Florida Department of Juvenile Justice Secretary.
Hey, well, good morning, and it's a great day to be in the free state of Florida, is that right? So, while I currently serve as the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice Secretary, I have to tell you, I'm also here because I volunteer and I serve as a board member for the Special Olympics of Florida. And I want to truly thank the governor, who is not afraid to back down from a fight. He will not back down because he will fight for the opportunities of everyone in our state. And while I'm not here to speak specifically for the board, I want to just, explain that Special Olympics of Florida has been there in the very beginning, fighting and supporting our athletes. And it's important to differentiate them from Special Olympics International, who imposed this policy. And when you talk about a policy, and you talk about an organization who on their website promotes inclusion, to then have an exclusionary policy, it's contradictory, it's hypocritical, and it doesn't have the best interest of our athletes at the forefront. And so to be able to serve our state, and I approach this conversation today as a lifelong educator, someone who's been committed to ensuring opportunity and access for students, adults, and individuals who are learners and athletes. And I am so proud, and I have to tell you, it's hard to follow our athletes because they're the reason we're here. They inspire, They do everything they can to make sure that they're creating opportunities for themselves, their peers. And if you have not been to a competition to see the collaboration, the partnership, the relationships that exist, I encourage you to get out there and support them, because it's unbelievable to see what they have done to train and work so hard to get to this moment and then be deprived. It's disheartening. And I can tell you, to see where we are today, to know just a few hours ago when we got the update that Isabella and another 100 athletes here in our state for our Florida delegation will be able to participate now because of this decision in the fight that has been taken on by the governor, the Surgeon General, and the policies that have been created in partnership between the governor and the legislature. We're here today to celebrate and acknowledge their success, and we're looking forward to you bringing home a whole lot of medals. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. You know, Special Olympics of Florida, which again has been on the forefront fighting for our athletes, you know, serving 60,000 athletes a year here in our state. We have the largest delegation in the country coming to the competition in the Summer Games here, with what was 500 delegates participating. We'll now have an opportunity to have 600 delegates. So again, a whole lot of medals are on their way. Congratulations. We're excited, and we're going to be cheering you on, and you've got an entire state of Florida that's behind you to see you do great things. So thank you, and Governor, thank you for your leadership.
Well, we're just glad that we were able to make a difference and help these athletes compete. I know it's very meaningful for them, but I think it's also very meaningful for a lot of people throughout the state of Florida. You know, we really value what they're contributing, not just as athletes, but what they contribute to our communities. And so good luck, guys. I know you're going to do very well, and I'm very excited to see you. Your smile when we said you could compete, I mean,
yeah, Wayne.
that was incredible. So, okay, well, we look forward to having a good games, and we look forward to all our Florida athletes being able to compete without fear or favor. And I know that we will bring home an awful lot of medals. So, with that, I can take a couple questions.
Governor, can you say what it took to get the International Committee to agree with it? Legal action, or what kind of things have you done into it?
Well, I think Joe's office was negotiating back and forth, but I mean, you know, we did pass the vaccine passport rule or law last year, as Joe had mentioned, and so they would have run afoul of that, and that would have subjected them to penalties. And that wasn't us like singling them out. I mean, that's just how the law operates. And so I think once they understood that, you had the situation where it wasn't a good look to be excluding these athletes, but then they would also face financial penalties under our law, which has been on the books for quite some time now. And so I think that Joe working with them, getting them in this spot. Look, the people in Florida totally understood it. They were always on the side of the athletes. These are folks that are outside of that and have just a little bit different, I think, overall worldview, you know, which is fine, but, you know, you don't have the right to impose that on Florida in violation of our laws. And so that's what I think was very clear. And at the end of the day, I think this resolution is going to be good for these Florida athletes. I am a little disappointed. There may be other athletes that maybe if you're in Hawaii, you're probably not going to be able to get to Orlando on 24, 48 hours notice. So there still may be some athletes who would want to compete, but because it took so long, maybe just logistically they won't be able to. And I think that that's really unfortunate. But it wasn't for a lack of effort on our part. They've been engaging in this and going back and forth, and finally we were able to come to a situation where the athletes could compete.
You worked with Orange County. Was there a clash between your office and Orange County in terms of making this happen, or was it police?
No. Orange County wanted them to. I mean, Orange County never said they didn't want them to compete, as far as I know. I know a lot of people in Orange County are very excited about hosting the Special Olympics. I mean, you know, my wife and I were very excited. We're honorary chairs of the thing. I mean, it's a big deal. We were here in Central Florida. Remember when we did the big thing with all the athletes in preparation for this? So it's something that is important and meaningful to us, and it just would not have been the same, you know, with some of the athletes on the sidelines. So, well, it's not a hurricane, thankfully. But we do have a lot. So there's a system that's moved across the Gulf of Mexico, and it's an interesting thing because it's bringing a lot of rain in South Florida. Pretty much, most of it's going to be south of I-4. You're going to get definitely southwest, southeast Florida. They're going to get a lot of rain all day today. There's not anyone in an emergency posture People are just heeding basic safety precautions. You may want to be inside, but no one's going into emergency posture. We're ready if that's needed from Florida to do. We don't anticipate it at this point, but I think one of the things that's unique about this system is the rain is actually beating the wind. And so you're going to have a very rainy day today, and you're going to probably have a relatively dry but windy day tomorrow where the winds come on shore. That's usually they go together. So that's the latest update we got this morning from the National Hurricane Center, was that it had kind of disaggregated, which is a little bit different than the typical system. Now, looking forward, people say it's going to be a big hurricane. It's not going to be big. They have all these predictions. Look, we've got to be ready no matter what. A lot of these predictions aren't right either way. Sometimes they'll say there aren't a lot of storms, then you'll get a big storm at the end. And so our preparations are the same no matter what. You still have the ability to get supplies tax-free that I think lasts, I don't know exactly the date we get it, but I mean that was something that we enacted that's very significant. So you're going to be able to get that relief there. And there's also going to be other ways that people can prepare. We now have, with the tax package I signed, you can actually do upgrades to windows and other things tax-free to your home. We just did the bill to mitigate the problems with property insurance, and some of it involved structural changes to our market so that we actually can get people that want to come here and offer policies and give consumer choices. But part of it was we provided funding through the My Safe Florida Home program, where you can actually get a grant, not wealthy people, but middle and low income families, for their homes to make improvements. And there are certain improvements you make, you will get a reduction on your insurance rates. And so we're excited about doing some of those things. I mean, we're not going to be able to prevent a storm from coming to Florida. This is Mother Nature, but we can mitigate by doing some of those things, and I think it's much more attractive to make some of those improvements today than it was just a few months ago.
Governor, a lot of the projects that were vetoed here in Central Florida, including a parking facility in Sanford and a fire station in Winter Park, is there any specific reason why those projects were vetoed and others?
So, I mean, basically, my view was that if you look at the budget, we've had population growth, we've had a lot of inflation. So the budget top line is higher than it was last year, but not really out of line given that and given the growth of the economy. But I did set a limit that I was not going to go above $110 billion. And so we work with the legislator. There are some legislators, I said, hey, I've got 3 projects on the V list. I can give you one. What do you want? And then sometimes they would choose some of the things where it's more municipalities. We didn't do a lot of fire stuff for the municipalities. The reason is just simply, if I do one, then I've got to do all throughout the state. And so it's just trying to prioritize. You do have some areas that have a stronger tax base that maybe I would do for a fiscally constrained. Maybe you don't do it for one that's a little bit wealthier. And so there's a lot of different factors. But just because something was vetoed does not necessarily mean it didn't have any merit. We were just not going to go above a certain amount. And the result is, in Florida, we have record reserves in terms of our budget reserves. When I came into office, our rainy day fund, I think it was about $1.3 billion. It's now a record $3.1 billion just in rainy day. We're going to end this fiscal year, June 30th, with probably $21 billion in total reserves. That number will go down a little bit to start the new fiscal year, but we're getting revenue over and above the estimates every month that we're looking at between $15 and $20 billion reserves most likely. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to keep that spending reasonable is because we don't know what's happening with the national economy. There's a lot of negative signals that's coming out. Obviously, we all know the inflation. You see it every day when you buy groceries, when you go get gasoline. You also see other issues that I think are having an impact. You're seeing interest rates being risen because of dealing with the inflation. And so the question is that going to slow down the economy? We did have negative growth in the last quarter nationally, not in Florida, but overall. What does that do? They did come out with 300,000 jobs, which, is not terrible, but that's not necessarily rip-roaring. So there's a lot of questions about what's going on. I think a lot of it is a result of really bad policies out of Washington. But the bottom line is we've got to protect our state for whatever may come ahead. I'm confident because of the decisions we've made, if and I hope this doesn't happen, but if there would be an economic downturn and we would then not get as much tax revenue coming in to the Treasury, we will not miss a beat. I have adequate reserves where we will be able to plug any hole that we need. So we're going to continue on target with education. We had the largest education funding in the history of the state of Florida this year. We're going to continue with teacher compensation increases. This budget, the largest in the history of the state of Florida. We're going to continue with our conservation efforts and restoration of the Everglades and water resources, and that will continue, and we've done more than any administration's done on that. We're going to continue with infrastructure. We had a record amount of money go into the FDOT work program. I mean, I look around the state and, you know, people want to visit here, which is great. People want to move here, which is fine, but, you know, it puts a stress on the infrastructure. I mean, you go from Disney World to Tampa on I-4, and it's like you could just be stuck there any time of the day. So we want to do things to alleviate some of the really significant hot spots that we're seeing. So we're going to be able to continue all of that even if we have a slowdown in the economy. Now, I think because of all the things that have happened in Florida over the last couple of years, you remember the 2008, 2009 downturn, Great Recession. Florida did worse than most states during that. I mean, we got absolutely hammered. Parts of this region got hammered. Southwest Florida hammer. I mean, it was a total disaster for the state, one of the worst economic periods we've ever had. I think because of all the things we've done to really build a stronger, more resilient economy, if there is a national downturn, you know, I think Florida will hopefully continue to outpace the nation, and I think that we've done a good job of protecting ourselves against, because, you know, really 12 years ago was pretty much all eggs were going into tourism and housing, and, you know, that didn't end up working well. We've got a bigger industrial base now. We've got way more financial services. We've got a lot of stuff going on in the state of Florida, and even if the economy slows, tourism will slow, but because we're so much more attractive place to visit, because we don't have passports, we don't have all that stuff, you know, we're still going to get, I think, pretty robust tourism numbers coming into the state of Florida, and we've really never seen anything. I got to figure out the numbers for Memorial Day, but I can tell you it was packed everywhere on Memorial Day, and, you know, these restaurants were packed, the hotels. So you know, it's a good place to be for that.
Governor, one particular veto that's got some national curiosity, and that's the one of the Tampa Bay Rays facility. Did that have anything to do with the political statements that Tampa Bay Rays were making?
So I don't support giving taxpayer dollars to professional sports stadiums, period. And so at the end of the day, that was just the decision that was going to be made. Now, companies are free to engage or not engage with whatever discourse they want, but clearly it's inappropriate to be doing tax dollars for professional sports stadium. It's also inappropriate to subsidize political activism of a private corporation. So I think, you know, either way, it's not appropriate, but we were not in a situation where use of tax dollars for a professional stadium would have been a prudent use. And again, you know, I set that limit as to what we were going to spend, and we made sure that we were doing it. And so what we try to do with these projects, you know, is doing things that really are benefiting the community as a whole, more so than maybe one specific interest or one specific company. Well, I think if you look at our budget that we just did today, or I signed yesterday, we had another major increase in funding for school safety and for mental health. And, you know, when you're talking about school security, the thing is for whatever reason, I think going back to Columbine, this has become something where these deranged psychopaths have certain targets, and some of them go to schools as a way to kind of maximize the trauma to a community. They're very evil people. But what they also are is they do look for areas where they think they're going to be able to get away with it. The Buffalo shooter, for example, said, you know, I'm going places where I don't have to worry about people concealed carry or anything like that, because they wanted basically sitting ducks. And so what I think we've done in Florida since I've been governor is make sure there's adequate security at schools, make sure that we follow the recommendations of the Parkland Commission. I'm going to be signing a bill probably within the next week that's going to continue on with the commission and make some additional improvements, and I think that that's something very important. Now, we're going to figure out for definitively what happened with this response or not response, but I can tell you, when I got elected governor and I took office, I met with a lot of the Parkland families, and one of the things that they were so frustrated about was there was not an adequate effort to rescue their kids. There was not, the shooter didn't meet the quick resistance that he should have met. And you had a lot of folks that could have been held responsible, and nobody had been held responsible. And so when I came in, we decided to do something about that. We removed the sheriff of Broward County because nobody in this country in elected office has done more to support law enforcement than me. We have people flooding into this state, submitting applications to work in state agencies. Of course, after July 1st, you're going to get a $5,000 signing bonus, so why not, right? So we have that. When you had all the rioting and they were attacking police, you never saw me out there marching against the police. I backed the blue because I knew how important it was. But part of the reason I do that is because, and part of the reason I honor the service of the people who wear the uniform is because, you know, their duty is to put themselves in harm's way to protect the community. And that's not an easy thing to do. And you got to be willing to step up. And when those times call, they're not easy, but you have to be able to respond, particularly when you have people that aren't able to defend themselves. And so what we did with Parkland was say we're going to hold law enforcement accountable as well. And that's the thing. You could have the best security in the world, but if you don't have folks that are out there when it really counts, and which very well may have happened in Texas, then it's not going to amount to much. And so we support law enforcement more than any, but we also have very high standards. And we know in Florida they're going to live up to those standards, but we expect them to live up to those standards. And I can tell you, when we held Broward accountable, it wasn't going to bring, you know, you could talk to like Ryan Petty is on the Florida State Board of Education. I appointed him, and he's been great and really a great voice on school security and school safety. It wasn't going to bring his daughter back, but to have some accountability to say, you know, what happened there was wrong. This should not have happened. This guy had been in the system of school discipline and law enforcement. And we also did a special grand jury in Broward to identify problems in the school system. And you know what? That superintendent is no longer the superintendent down there as a result of what we did. And so accountability, I think, is very important. And it just seems like in our society now, if you commit like some infraction against like political correctness, you will have the mob descend on you. They will try to get you fired from your job, all that other stuff, which is obviously excessive. But if you're going to do that, then you have these big institutional failures and no one is held accountable. Who has been held accountable for the debacle in Afghanistan? I don't think a single person has been held accountable. Seems to me that that would call for some accountability. And again, it doesn't fix the underlying problem. It doesn't take back, you know, you're not going to get those 13 service members' lives back by holding people accountable. But I think it makes it less likely that stuff like that is going to happen again in the future. And so I'm proud of what we've been able to do. I think if you look at these 4 budget years since I've been governor, I think we're pretty close to $750 million with school safety initiatives, and that's something very significant. You also have the issue of mental health, and you know, my wife is very good on this, and you know, she will always tell me, you know, you have some deranged lunatic that is not necessarily what we mean by mental health. Yeah, they probably have some mental problems for sure. Maybe there could have been interventions. But, you know, when we talk about mental health in the schools, a lot of these are just normal kids that are going through difficult times. You know, it's not like everyone that needs mental health services is a would-be school assassin. That's not true, and I don't want to lump them in together. But I also do think some of these people have so many warning signs, and it just gets ignored time and time again. The Parkland shooter clearly was somebody that was a big-time problem in terms of how he was behaving. And so we've done things like, since I've been governor, behavioral threat assessment, so that if somebody's in school, they're online posting that they're going to do some really bad stuff, that you take it seriously, that you understand that there may be people who are going to act against the best interests of the community, and that you not just kind of hope nothing happens, that you be more aggressive on it. And you have seen, I mean, you saw over in the Tampa Bay area, you had someone in Lee County that the sheriff was doing that. And that's really, I think, what you need to do, because these people, you know, they're so deranged, but they want attention, and they want to do things that are going to be able to get their names in the headlines. I do think that when these things happen, we shouldn't even know the person's face. No, you're giving them too much credit. But we're going to continue to be very strong in terms of our school safety. I just think as a parent of young kids, it's something that's very sensitive to me and to my wife. And I'm happy to say in Florida, we've put our money where our mouth is. It was not something that we've ever skimped on. We made sure that we were able to do that. And this year is the biggest yet. And it's the right thing to do. All right, everybody. Thank you all. We appreciate it. Oh, okay. I would be fine with it, but you weren't on the list, so you know what? There's media here. Why don't we work to get him an interview? We'll do that. Yeah.
Nice meeting you. Good luck.